Welcome to another episode of Masked Monologues, the anonymous podcast dedicated to creatives. Each week, I dive into conversations with a diverse array of creatives from various industries to explore their unique processes and stories. If you're enjoying the show and want to support us, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Masked Monologues. Today, we're going to have a discussion with Andy here about leadership and communication skills. So, Andy, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, and thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Certainly, I'm looking forward to it with lots of pleasure. I'm Andy Charles, and I'm a life and development coach and author and a podcast host, as well as a transformational speaker. And I'm looking forward to really sharing the gifts that God has blessed me with your audience and your listeners. And looking forward to this engaging and valuable conversation. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I love having guests on, and especially guests who are experts in leadership, personal development. I want to know what got you into this industry and why did you decide to start?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. First of all, several years ago, actually, it was about just around 2018, before we had the upsurge of COVID 19. I realized that I've been coaching and speaking publicly, but not in a formative uh, manner in terms of the audience and the people, the techniques, and so on. And I realized that on a very often basis, people would just come to me for information on leadership, guidance, stuff like that. And whenever there was um, an event taking place, I would get invited to either do the keynote speech or hold a conference or even a convention. They would call me up. And I realized that it is something that I had been naturally blessed with. And so I decided to research what I needed to do, not just to be professional, but to be so much more influenced by the gifts that I naturally had and to increase my level of competence and also my level of relevance with regards to what I naturally was blessed to do. And I started working, I asking questions. I was asking questions all over the place from experts. I looked at the tapes, countless tapes. I can't even remember the amount. And then I started to do the courses and to certify myself. And from then on, I realized that this is something that I could actually share with the world. And that launched me into a place where I decided I would do it via podcast and also let my services be known. And that is the birth of Andy's personal development. The rest, as they say, is history.
Yes, and on your website or your web pages, I noticed that you work specifically with entrepreneurs, with um, business owners, with people in C-suite positions. Can you tell me about what exactly you help them with? I know it's communication, but from the perspective of an entrepreneur, what are some communication requirements or basic skills that you've noticed need improvement?
Yeah, well, a lot of communication skills that are necessary in the world today comes from one to understand that when you're having a conversation with someone or you're looking to make an impact in the world, you need to have something that is of great value. And entrepreneurs sometimes reach a fork in the road and they can't decide whether to go left, right, or center, stay where they are, or even go back. And there are many choices when you reach a fork in the road, a proverbial fork in the road. So what I do is I help them to define their message. If it needs to be defined in a manner that says, okay, this is me, this is what I represent, and this is what I want the world to know about what I represent. That's my message, my core message. And usually that is centered around their ability to do something that is unusual and is specifically aligned to them with regards to their skills, their talents, their abilities. And so what we do is we formulate a conversation that is called transactional conversations, where we teach them. When you are putting this information out as an entrepreneur, you communicate the value so much so that it fits a need that someone has out there. And how you do that? By research. That's one way. The other way you can do that is by at least experimenting with something that you know you can do. It's in your area of competence. Put it out there on social media and see the feedback that you get. And sometimes that gives you a guide as to what's happening on the ground. In addition to that, we help them build an email list. And with that list, you send out specific information to the people that are in your email list, asking them questions about your ability. What more do you need to hear from me? What areas do you need for me to address with regards to the business I do, the service, the product, the podcast, whatever it is, whatever medium that you use to communicate to get that message there? Ask for feedback. And when you get feedback, the feedback gives you an opportunity to decide, hey, wait a minute, this is what the people need. And therefore, now you can coin your message around that specific need. And when the message goes out there, you know it's going to resonate with somebody and it's going to make a difference. And that's how the communication gives you the opportunity to create a greater level of impact on your audience and those who are in the future going to be part of your audience.
And when it comes to communication, especially for entrepreneurs, for anyone who's pursuing, I'd say, an unconventional career where they have to be the forefront of their artwork, the forefront of their company, how do you walk them through presentations? Because presentation seems to be an essential part of communication, of putting your message out there, of telling others what you're exactly it is you're doing, and of voicing your work. So I want to know, what are things that you look for when entrepreneurs do presentations? And I know sometimes when it comes to presentations, we use a lot of filler words. So we've got the ums, the ahs in there. We've got the likes, some people just like to use like. And I'm wondering, for someone who might be introverted, what you could tell them, any practical tips or tricks they could use to add into their communication so they could become more fluent, better communicators.
Yeah. Communication is a huge part of being able to present a message or reach out to people or have a conversation. But the one thing that I would say, and that this may surprise a whole lot of people, is there is no right or wrong way to communicate. And I know that is a surprising statement, but I'll tell you why. Each communicator would have his or her different style. As a coach, it is my responsibility to find out, based on that person's personality, what their particular style of communication is. And the reason why that is important is because sometimes inadvertently we don't know it, but every day of our lives we communicate. We go to the grocery store, we communicate. We go to a public service office, we communicate. We meet someone for the first time in a taxi or the airport or on a plane, we sit next to them, they're a stranger, communication takes place. When you go on a stage, you have to adopt the principle that this is a communication where conversation is going to take place between you and the people in the audience. The first hurdle that you have to overcome is the hurdle of anxiety. Everyone gets anxious at some point in time when you're about to speak or communicate your message to people, particularly for the first time. Because why? Maybe because the audience don't know you and you don't know the audience, so there's no level of familiarity, so then you can't be comfortable. But in your mind, you have to create the opportunity for yourself to be comfortable. So here are a few guidelines. First of all, forget your personality, forget the audience, and think about being present in the moment. And remember, when you went to school, there are times when the teacher would call you to say something, and even though you are introvert, the few words that you had to say made a difference, made an impact. You made a statement. And so the whole thing about it, in order to really approach that level of anxiety, is to think about telling a story. Put your presentation into story modes. So the first part is the introduction, the second part is the superstructure, and the third part, of course, is the ending. In order for you to engage your audience, they must see that you are comfortable. That's important. And so, one of the things that you also have to do is to remember that staying in the moment means your focus is not going to be on how anxious you are, but how important it is for you to connect with the audience in real time. Thirdly, always remember that even though your audience may be your biggest critic, they're also a friend who's waiting to be introduced. So you must use words that includes them in your story. The second person, you, or remember when you used to, terms like that. Or remember something about your life that brings back an episode that you could remember and you could relate to. Remember those days, remember those times, and then you bring them back into the present and you say, okay, what about today? What about now? How does this, what I'm saying, resonate with you? Do you think this is valuable to you? Is this going to make a difference to you somehow? Because what you're doing is you're creating a certain level of anticipation for the audience to pick up on. And once you realize that they have done that by being observant, you have to observe their body movements. You have to see whether their eyelids are opening up and the pupils are opening up, not being diluted, but opening up. So you would see that there's a sense of awakening. They're thinking, wow, he's speaking to me. Or wow, I'm hearing this for the first time. Or wow, let me hear more. Look at their face. Look at their facial expression. Look at the muscles on their face. Is it relaxed or is it constricting? That's what you have to look for. Are their shoulders drooping? Because there's three things that the audience are going to do. They're either going to show you sympathy, or they're going to zone you out, or they're going to engage with you. You want the majority of them to engage. However, if that does not happen, don't be deterred. Stick to the plan. And if it becomes necessary, go back to your story format. You have the foundation, which is the opening, you have the superstructure, and you have the end. If you have to rush to the end a little bit just to create a higher level of inclusivity, do that. But always keep your audience engaged as you possibly can. And one of the best ways to do that is to always have a story that's inclusive and that shows that they are the ones you are concerned about. They are the ones that are at the point of your focal interest. And your concern is not about you, but telling them something that is of value to them that they can use, that practically they can place into their lives and would make a difference.
So, on the topic of stories, I've seen a lot of public speakers do something similar, not exactly a story, but more of an analogy to
Yeah.
explain a concept. So,
Mm-hmm.
with these analogies, it's like taking a real world example,
Yeah.
explaining your concept through that real world example. So, you can see it happen with, apples. You're comparing apples to oranges, and you're talking about some other concept, whether it's political, whether it's about business, just to explain what you mean and put it in words that the audience can understand and is more elementary. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know, have you seen this happen with entrepreneurs? And especially with entrepreneurs, what type of presentations would they be giving? Because either it would be, pitches to other businesses, including people in what they're doing. Maybe it's training courses to their employees. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
negotiation. And I'm wondering, especially with negotiation, what are some tactics, some tips, some tricks that you can use to convince others? Because as a business owner, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, you're always convincing somebody else that they need what you have,
Right.
and you're convincing them that this is what they want to invest their time and this is what they want to invest their money in. So if you have any advice on that topic, any tips and tricks, anything people can practically apply when it comes to negotiation?
Negotiations are very important, but one thing that the entrepreneur must recognize, and this is critical, he or she must find out the audience that they're going to face. If you're going to negotiate, if you're going to sell, if you're going to promote, if you're going to inform, find out the nature of the audience. There's always something associated with an audience. It's either they are going to be philosophical, they're going to be cultural, they're going to be spiritual, they're going to be sporting led. There is something that can identify the genre of the audience that you're going to deal with. So the first thing you need to do if you're going to go into a negotiation is to do some research. Find out the history of the audience, whether it's a company, an organization, an individual, another entrepreneur that you want to bring into your cycle or circle of business. Find out what is the one thing that they identify with, that resonates with them, that makes them stand out as an audience. And then you build and you plan your pitch, your speech, your presentation around that particular information that you would have received. And many a times when that happens, what you are doing is you need to sound informed and connected to the very need of the audience. Forget the competition. It's not about competing, it's about being relevant. Relevant in the sense that you're showing them that you have taken time out to do your research, one. Two, you understand what their need is. And three, when you give them that presentation, when you make that offer, when you do that negotiation, it is a win-win situation, meaning there is something in it for them and there's something in it for you, but there's also something in it for the people that they deal with, their markets, their audience, their community, whatever it is they're involved in. And therefore, when you do that beforehand. When you get on that stage, when you get in that office, when you get into that meeting, you must now be able to connect with them on those three levels: understanding the power of the research, understanding the need that you found, that connectivity between those who are involved in that group, and also the nature of what they're going to do with regards to the office or the market that they're going to deal with in terms of the product or services that they are going to present or represent from their perspective. When they see you align your values with their values, then you leave much more room for negotiation. So it cannot be that you're focusing on me. It must be us, all inclusive. That is the main impression that they must get. So that you're negotiating, sorry, not just for your betterment, but for the benefit of the people in the room and the ones who are going to get a product or service as a result of the success of the negotiation that is about to take place.
So I'd like to go back to your first point, which was research. And with the research, how would someone do a thorough job of researching their ideal audience? Because we can go on social media. Would you suggest looking at the types of videos they watch, learning how they speak and communicate? Because depending on what type of audience you have, you might have an audience that tends to use more slang in their language. You might have an audience that's
Mhm.
more professional and uses sophisticated language.
Mhm.
So it's knowing who your audience is. For example, I was speaking to someone the other day who had a tech company for attorneys, and
Mhm.
you're going to have that conversation, those negotiations. They're going to be in a different format. You're going to use different words. You're going to convey yourself in a different manner, as opposed to someone who might have a company selling children's books, right? So those are two completely separate audiences. That's just the most stark example I can use. But these audiences, you want to know who you're researching, you'd look at demographics such as age, such as gender. And then also, I think that's one factor people don't take into consideration is how they talk, how they communicate.
Okay, I hear where you're coming from. The manner in which you do your research is threefold. One, you need to have some history. So it is important, even if you don't get it online, social media platforms, get in connection with somebody, an individual. And of course, somebody would have invited you, or you would have made a pitch and communicate with somebody, and they would have said, okay, we're going to give you 15, 20, 35 minutes on such and such a date and time. Make that person your go to person and have them tell you, look, here's the thing. In order for me to do this presentation effectively and efficiently, I need information. Can you help me? I want to be able to connect with your people and you in particular. I need the history. That history is critical to how they would have done things in the past, as opposed to or with a continuation of how they are currently doing things now. So when you get that history, and then when you put that history alongside with the research that you can do independently on the social media platforms, you would begin to realize that now you can see clearly which is the best approach that you can take with regards to speaking, pitching, negotiating with this audience. The demographics are important, but what is much more important is the history of the people, because every organization has a culture, the way that they do things, the way that they make decisions, the way that they make choices. And those things are important for you because it helps you to increase the level of preparation that you're going to do at the end when you present your final presentation. All these things come into play as a factor with regards to the effectiveness of your presentation or your negotiation. So, critical, get somebody on the inside who knows intimately the history of the organization, the history of the people, the club, and have them share that information with you in good faith. And then couple that with your natural ability as well as your independent research that you're going to do on the social media platforms. When you put that together, you have a comprehensive opportunity to gain some level of ascendancy with regards to the end goal in mind.
Okay, so I want to pivot back to the second part of what you were saying for your negotiation process. And this is finding the need and asserting that it's actually a need for your audience, for your ideal customer, and not just something that worked for you once. And maybe your mom said she liked, and you thought that you were going to make a product or service out of it.
Yeah.
So some of this comes down to market testing
Yes.
and knowing that there is a demand for that product, for that service. So, when it comes to market testing, what are some methods that you've seen in the past have worked for other entrepreneurs, other business owners, other, people who are just starting out who wanted to test if there was this demand for their service or their product or whatever they were working on?
Yeah. Again, everybody has a social cycle or a social circle. And one of the most effective way to do a market testing is to reach out to people who know you and let them know that you are doing this survey because you want to get feedback. What you expect is that they will be honest with you, and you can ask them to do that. Be honest with me. Why? Because this is something that I'm going to invest in as a project, and I want to know, what does my product or my service say to you? Because in order for me to do that, I need to know that I'm addressing a specific need that you actually have. So your market testing preference has a lot to do with reaching out to your immediate social cycle or circle. Even if it's just 15 or 20 persons, the demographic may be small, but it should be enough to give you a feedback that would enlighten you with regards to the information concerning the test. The feedback is something that you would then put in a database. And as time go on, you continue to take more feedbacks from other people so that you expect that your audience would grow. Once your audience grows and your demographic widens, you then have a greater opportunity to continue the market testing. Market testing is not a one time thing. It should be a continuous, repetitive scenario of efforts that you would make or take to ensure that you remain relevant. You realize I would be using that word a lot. Relevance is important, not what the competition is doing. Relevance to the need of the people based on your surveys, your testings, and the results of those testings. So you start with your community. And if you can't reach out to many people who know you, family, close friends, at least those who would understand what you're trying to accomplish and would give you a feedback that you can take from the heart because they want to see you succeed. They want to see you accomplish things. They want to see you go to the next level. Bring them in. Let them know you need their opinions. You need them to try the product. You need them to try the services. And you take that opportunity to ensure that the message that you receive or the information you get back, use it now to create a presentation around people of similar like and similar usages. That is the, to me personally, that is one of the most effective way in which you can conduct any form of market testing. It is about the people and the feedback that the people give you that you can now take as a foundation and from there go to the next level.
Yes, and I've noticed that the big boys are amazing at collecting information after you've purchased a product or a service. How many times do you get, an email from Google or from some big company saying, could
Exactly.
you review this? Could you do this survey?
Yes.
But it's
Yes.
something that a lot of small businesses need to implement more
Mm-hmm.
into their strategy.
That's right.
So when I see this happen, I noticed that small businesses don't know what to ask sometimes because they're doing a survey, but it's more
Mm,
vague. It's like, did you think my product was good? And then people are like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. It was good. It was okay. But then what insights does that give you? So
yeah.
is it structuring your questions to
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what you need to fix in your product and your service. So instead of saying, hey, is my product good? It's, hey, was my product convenient for you? Was it accessible? Was it a good price? Was it, did it fit your need? Did it solve the issue? Did it solve the problem? How do you use the product? So just
Yeah.
using more structured questions, would you say
Mm-hmm.
is something that an entrepreneur should do? And how should you go about structuring these surveys? Because nobody wants to be on a survey for 30 minutes in their day. Like no one's going to take the time out of their day unless they're, exceedingly upset with the product, unless there's something wrong and they just have this impulse to take a 30-minute survey. But generally, you want your surveys to be quick and informative for you as a business owner to know how to apply that feedback in the future.
Okay, so one of the greatest challenge that an entrepreneur has is if you've already put your product and your service out there, it's out in the market, it's out in the open, it's addressing the people out there. The greatest challenge is expectation. So, one of the ways, the first way you could actually get genuine feedback is to ask a direct question. Did my product or service meet your expectations? That's the first thing you need to get out of the way. So, whether the answer is yes or no, then the second question should be if it did not meet your expectations, do you have any suggestions with regards to the expectations from our product? If it did meet the expectations and they said yes, you say, will you continue to use our product because it has fulfilled your expectations? Sometimes you don't need 10 or 15 questions. You just need a few direct questions because time is a precious commodity. People have limited time. And as you rightly say, we may not have 20 minutes, may not even have 10 minutes to just sit down and respond to your survey because you decide you needed a feedback from us. But be more direct. And it has to deal with expectation. Did we or did we not meet your expectation? If they did, you thank them and then you ask them if they would continue using your product because of the expectations. If your product or service did not meet their expectation, then you need to know why. You need to know in which way they thought it could improve or make a better impact upon their lives, whatever the need may be with regards to the service or the product. That's one. Secondly, it is important to have live interactive workshops. Now, that may be a challenge for small businesses or a budding entrepreneur because immediately when you think about that, you think about money. But here's the thing, be practical. If you are doing business in a particular community and you want that community to gain as a result of the business you're doing, whether it be a product or a service, find non government organizations and partner with them. There's always a community center or two in the area of your community that you can ask just to do something. You don't want to promote anything, but you want to reach out to the people in the area. You have a product or service that you think can make a difference, that can add value to their lives. Use that as an opportunity. Community is extremely important. At least start there. Introduce yourself, let them know what you think your product or services can do for them in the community because you live there. You see what's happening. You have spoken to people. You have gotten feedback. And do a promotion there. Do a workshop there. Do a seminar there. And get the live feedback from the people. Word of mouth right there in real time live. Those are the two most effective ways I think that you can have the opportunity to get feedback on whether your product is making sense, whether it's useful, and most of all, whether it is meeting the expectations of the people that you want to serve.
So I want to know now, at what stage do CEOs, entrepreneurs, maybe aspiring entrepreneurs come to you when they need your services, when they need your expertise? And is it for someone who's more advanced or is it for someone who's more of a beginner?
I love that question. I deal with people at many levels. I prefer the incipient stages. And the reason why I say that is because if we start together, we can outline strategies and plans and outputs that we know have been tested, tried, and proven. And we just need to make some, little tweaks or changes here and there because everybody is unique in terms of what they want to do as a product or a service as an entrepreneur. So we work with that as well because within that level of uniqueness lies the strength of the individual. So my focus is on your strength. What are the things that you can do? What are the things that you are competent and capable of doing with regards to your ability to produce or to be of service? However, if you are at the second stage, which is you've already begun, but you reach a point where you can't go any further, you're stuck. And this happens a lot. You can come to me as well. We'll sit down, we'll look at what you have done thus far. And if there are changes that are necessary for you going forward, we also look at that. But in addition to me dealing with the actual practical application of business principles with regards to communication, with regards to marketing, with regard to promotion, we also deal with the mental and the emotional aspect of the individual. Because what happens sometimes is that there's an imbalance that people experience from time to time in life. And sometimes because they can't go to the next level, emotionally they are affected. Psychologically they are affected. And we deal with that as well. Why? Because if there are any baggages, unresolved issues, things in the past that you have not closed the door on, or there was no healing as a result of those things, then we need to address those first and then move on. So we address those. If it is a place where you are budding, but you want to launch into a new area, a new market, a new genre of things that you want to do, come to me as well. We'll work it out. The important thing there is three aspects. One, why do you want to do what you want to do? Two, how do you want to do it? And three, who are the people that you want to meet on the other side? Your audience, your market, your target market. That's the correct term. So, and when we put all these together, we come up with a plan. And so it's plan, it's costing, it's projection, and then the last thing is application. Let's get to work. So at the incipient stages is what I would prefer, but I don't object to anyone coming to me at any particular stage or area in their business or in their entrepreneurship for help and assistance and guidance. I am willing and able to work together with them, focusing on their strengths and allowing them to use that now to make informed decisions about how they can go forward being effective and efficient as an entrepreneur with regards to communication, building up of their business, marketing, etc.
And now, with that being said, I want to ask, where are some places that people can reach out to you? So your social media, your websites, what are some places that you are active on and people can just connect with you?
Okay, so if you want to get me on the social media platforms, I'm at LinkedIn, LinkedIn in Andy A. Charles. That's linkedin.com/in/Andy A. Charles. On Instagram, it's instagram.com/Andy Charles 8417. At Twitter, it's twitter.com/Keymena, Keymena. And you can also get me on Facebook. It's Andy Charles, facebook.com Andy Charles 393. If you want to visit my website, it's under reconstruction right now, but there's the old website and it's www.andyspersonaldevelopment.com. www.andyspersonaldevelopment.com. My YouTube handle is youtube.com/at Andy Charles Dreamer. youtube.com/at Andy Charles Dreamer.
Okay, thank you so much. And it was amazing having this discussion with you on my podcast.
Mhm.
If you viewers like this podcast episode, please do show Andy some love. Check his work out, visit his website, go to his social medias. And if you want more episodes like this, then please leave a review and give us some feedback. Also, share it with a friend or a family member. And we hope to see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Masked Monologues. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.